Welcome into the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the wild card, super wild card weekend slate, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man of the people in the room, G Money Grant Mitchell. How you doing?
I'm still cold, just like I was on the last episode. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good, Tanner. You know, we got the college football playoff semifinals starting tonight. We had a nice heated debate who's going to win, Notre Dame, Penn State. You've got Penn State. I've got Notre Dame. So be excited to see how that turns out. Of course, we got the other game tomorrow. And I'm just looking forward to the weekend. I mean, playoff football, college and professional doesn't get a whole lot better.
I was listening to Colt McCoy's podcast yesterday, and he is such a homer Texas fan. It is insane. Like it is crazy how your support of teams plays into how you pick games. I'll be the first to blame. I picked Texas. I don't think Texas is going to win the game, but I'll take them. But Colt McCoy is like, yeah, if we just do this and do this, like we're going to win the football game. Come on, Colt.
So I remember before I was watching the pregame for Michigan, Ohio State, and of course they've got Herb. Actually, forget who the panel was. It was Herb Street and all them, and they had Desmond Howard there. And everybody, of course, picked Ohio State. Like Urban Meyer picked them something like 38-10. And that didn't sound unrealistic. You know, the spread for that game was 17.5. And they get to Desmond Howard. And he's like, I think Michigan's going to be able to do this. And they're going to win whatever he said, 24-20, whatever it was. And it's like, he clearly did not believe that. That was all homerism, no objective analysis. But he ended up being right. Michigan had one of the biggest upsets of the year.
Yeah, well, they always do that. And, and that just goes to show, though, anyone can win on any given day in college. NFL, a little different. I think the good teams tend to win more because it's professional football. But at the same time, too, we could have upsets all weekend when it comes to college football, NFL. And we're going to break it down for the NFL today. If you guys want to check out all the college shows we have done, they are on the YouTube channel. So make sure you smash that subscribe button. And also check out WSN.com, right, Grant? Tell them why. They need to check
absolutely.
that out.
I mean, like I said, playoff football is here at WSN.com, the World Sports Network. Tanner, myself, a team of experts, we're breaking down every game, giving you betting insights and trends, analysis, sharing our favorite picks. We've got sportsbook promo codes, everything you could possibly need in the world of sports betting for these playoffs, you'll find at WSN.com.
I agree. Check it out right now. Just pause the show, go check it out, come right back and get in on Ride the Line. Start riding the line this morning because that's what we're doing. Chargers versus Texans starts the wild card weekend slate off Saturday, 4:30. This is like the participation bowl. If I had to pick one game to be the participation bowl and say neither team has a chance to go to the Super Bowl, it would be this game based on the path they have to follow, based on the teams they have to play. The Chargers. The world is loving the Chargers right now. They're getting like 90% of the money, 80% of the bets in that range. But the line has moved from 3 to 2.5 in favor of the Chargers still. So moving back towards the Houston Texans. Grant, what are you feeling in this one?
Yeah, I don't know if I would love to bet on this game just because of how heavy the world is on the Chargers. But I've got to admit, this has been clearly a down year for C.J. Stroud, and it's gotten worse as the year has gone on. Really, the Houston Texans last year, they were this offensive-driven team. C.J. Stroud's going bombs away, one of the best rookie seasons ever. This year, it's been their defense. Their defense has really carried them. They allow the lowest completion percentage in the league, might also be the lowest yards per attempt. The run defense isn't amazing, but they've been really good against the pass. Some of those young players, Will Anderson Jr. has gotten home. Kamari Lassiter's looked great in the secondary. So I think Houston is still alive in this game, but Jim Harbaugh, we know he knows how to win in the postseason, coming off of a national championship with Michigan. If we're looking at the quarterbacks and how they've played this season, Herbert has been better than C.J. Stroud. I think LA has a better opportunity to control the time of possession. And if you want to make this a defensive game, the Chargers gave up the fewest points per game in the NFL. So, again, don't love it from a betting perspective, but I would go with the Chargers as well.
I look at the ceilings here, and I know the Houston Texans do not have Tank Dell. They don't have Stephon Diggs, but you still have Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. You got a quarterback that in CJ Stroud that's just underperformed this season, but you have a really good defense. And I think both teams are going to be defensively sound in this game. It's going to come down to which offense can make more plays. I'll take the 2.5. I mean, I got it at 3, but it's 2.5 now. You're probably not going to get another 3. If you can get it, take that. But I'll take the Houston Texans plus 3 at home here. I don't love it by any means, but I think these teams are relatively even when it comes to a defensive perspective. When it comes to their consistency on offense, neither offense has been a consistent juggernaut this season. So I'll take the 3 points with the home team. I think Houston gets their first playoff win. I think the Chargers go packing back to LA.
Yeah, if you could get 3.5, then I would definitely be more comfortable with Houston. 2.5 doesn't do a whole lot for you. Again, it's just a weird game to try to bet. Harbaugh's a great coach. DeMeco Ryans is a great coach. I think it's going to be very close to the end.
2.5 doesn't get you a lot, but have you ever noticed anytime it's a 2.5 point spread, the game usually comes down to 2? It doesn't usually, but you see it in your head, like when you're betting. Like there are games that do come down to 2 points, and it's usually with a 2.5 point spread.
Yeah, or like a last second field goal, a game ends 28-27, something like that.
Like I've had so many times where it's like 2.5, and I haven't gotten screwed too much with it, but like right away a kicker misses the extra point and then it's 6-0, and you're like, oh, the game script is off now. 2.5 is going to come into play and hurt me.
That happened to me. I forget when. It was like a year or two ago. It might have been the Lions. Somebody went for a 2-point conversion for no reason, and they didn't get it. It might have been like their first touchdown of the game. They had no reason to go for a 2-point, and they didn't get it, and then I lost on the hook because of that play.
It happens. That's gambling. That's gambling. But we're resilient here because that's what gamblers have to be at Ride the Line. All right. This is a fun one. And this is a little disrespectful, too, in my mind. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming into Baltimore as a 9.5 point underdog here. I think there is a route for Pittsburgh to win the game. I don't think it's going to happen, but 9.5 points seems a little lofty when you look at historically just Lamar Jackson versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. 1-1 against them this year. He's 3-5 overall. He's got 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Hasn't been dominant run the football as of late against them. There is a route to victory for Pittsburgh here. So I would call them a live dog, even though I don't think it's going to happen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it is possible. I'm never going to say it isn't, but they're entering the postseason on a 5-game losing streak. And if you look at some of their the Steelers have not been good in the playoffs recently. Last year, wild card, they lose 17-31. They didn't make it in 2022. 2021, they lose 42-21. Before that, they lose 48-37. Before that, they give up 45 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that might have been the year Jacksonville went to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles. But the point being, they've not done well in the playoffs, and they've given up more than 30 points in all 4 of those games that I mentioned. So we normally look at Pittsburgh, especially this season, as having this great defense, hasn't been able to carry over to the playoffs in recent years. Now we flip that on its head. Lamar Jackson in his playoff career, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And he's also been bad against Pittsburgh in the regular season. He had a good game the last time they played, and he said it in his interview. He said, I finally got the monkey off my back. But that was one time in 6-7 games, however many times he's played them in his career. I'm not ready to say that is completely over. So I think both of these teams probably going to perform worse than you would want them to. But I think the line is just very large considering these teams have already seen each other twice, division rivalry, and they just played like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I got to take Pittsburgh plus 9.5.
And Pittsburgh's not a bad team against the spread. 10-7 against the spread this season. Catching this many points is with a really good defense. It's a solid number here. And looking at Baltimore, 11-6 against the spread this season. Grant, I don't know if you saw online everyone putting together their heavy favorite parlays. 3 legs. What do you think they are? If you haven't seen it online, there's one that's been going around.
I haven't seen it, but I would imagine that it's Bills, Ravens, and it's not going to be the Bucks. It's not going to be the Vikings. It's not going to be the Chargers. Eagles.
Yeah. Eagles, Bills, Ravens. I feel like that parlay has disaster written all over it.
I do too, because I don't think the Broncos, we'll talk about that game in a second. I don't think the Broncos have a chance, but there's a world in which the Steelers win. There's a world in which the Packers win. Not saying I would pick it, but it's possible.
There's a big world where the Packers win, I think. I don't think there's a world where Denver wins, but there is a world where they can keep the game closer than expected as well. So that's a sweaty plus 111 parlay for sure. So we're both taking Pittsburgh in this game, right?
Yeah, I do like those lower parlays though. I will say, like two leg, mostly two leg, sometimes three leg. You get them for like the plus 100 region. It can actually go pretty well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's what I've kind of lived off this season, but I just can't see. I can't necessarily. Don't get me wrong. All those legs should hit. All those teams are favorites to win the Super Bowl for a reason. But it feels like something's coming this weekend. We haven't had an upset in a while. The favorites have been crushing. It's just something. I think something could happen there. But let's move into our Denver Broncos versus Buffalo Bills game. I think the biggest factor in this one would be like the weather, the cold. Denver doesn't have that problem. They play in Denver, obviously, so coming to Buffalo is not much different for them. 8.5 points favor the Bills here. Josh Allen has been good in the playoffs unless he is going against Patrick Mahomes, so I don't necessarily see an issue. I still think 8.5 is a big number here, considering the Broncos are a good playoff team. You got a good defense. You got a quarterback who's playing well, but I'll take the veteran experience here with Josh Allen, and I probably would lay the points. But the spread makes it a stay away for me.
So I'm actually laying the points, and this is one of the games I'm more confident in. Now, Denver, I got to put this out there. I don't want to bury the lead. Denver, I was tied with Detroit for the best record against the spread in the NFL. They were 12-5. They consistently overachieved what was expected of them. So, in many ways, if you were fading the Broncos, you didn't believe, then I didn't for most of the season, then you ended up on the wrong side. I'm still fading them here. This is Josh Allen playing the best football of his career at home. It's going to be a rookie quarterback going on the road for his first experience in the playoffs. If you look back, this is a new experience for Bo Nix. What happened in his last new experience, his NFL debut? On the road, Seattle Seahawks. We know that can be a tough environment. Had 130 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't know if he'll be that bad, but I will say we have seen halves, even entire games where Bo Nix has either completely disappeared or he's thrown interceptions in very quick succession, 2 drives, 2 picks. He's made plays, okay? That one bomb, the 60-yard bomb, I forget who was against, might have been Cincinnati. It was a phenomenal throw. He's made plays. We know he's going to use his legs, but at the same time, Buffalo's going to be they're going to be prepared to contain that type of offense, and it's just a rookie who's prone to making mistakes. I don't think it goes well. I think Buffalo wins by about 14 points.
You know what you're forgetting, though, Grant?
What's that?
Bo Nix is like 30 years old.
He is 30 years old.
He's got that experience. I think Bo Nix is going to have an okay game. I don't think it's going to be great. I think it's probably close till the end, and Buffalo pulls away to like win by 14 points if I had to guess. But I think the Bills defense and Broncos defense is going to limit the scoring in this one. It's hard it is to stop Josh Allen. I do think the Broncos defense is going to have a decent day, maybe holding them to field goals in the red zone. One of my favorite picks in this one, and I'll let you be the judge if you like it, but I'm going to go to a kicking prop here, and I'm going to take Will Lutz over 6.5 kicking points. I think the Broncos are going to stall in the red zone. I think they're going to get 1 touchdown, 2 field goals in this game, and 6.5 is a good number. Usually you're getting that 7.5.
I don't know if I would make that my favorite, but I see the logic. I like what's going behind it. On that note, Burt Auburn over 0.5 field goals is a prize pick square. I think that's a steal.
So I see why it's 0.5. I can 100% see why it's only a half, because if you're going off the Ohio State, love affair right now, they're going to score 1 million touchdowns in the first quarter, and Texas can't kick field goals. But with that being said, I think it's a good deal, even though he's trash, apparently, according to Texas fans. I thought he was a good kicker. Texas fans in the comments are like, this dude sucks. Like, send him out of the country.
I think statistically, he is one of the best kickers in the country.
Yeah.
But he's like missed all of his kicks in the big games.
I like it, but I can see why it's only at a half. That's like my mentality coming into this one.
Am I tripping? Is it normal we get the 3 AFC games and the 3 NFC games?
I think it is because of like scheduling. So you'll have the AFC will be on the AFC. Well, it's kind of unfair the teams that play on Sunday, like the Bucks play Sunday night, they'll play next Sunday. But like I think the AFC games will be, the divisional round will be Saturday, and then the NFC will be on Sunday, if this is how they're doing it.
I thought it was always like AFC game, NFC game, AFC, NFC.
I thought it was too, honestly. I haven't really paid attention, but I did notice that where it was like three AFCs off the bat and then 3 NFCs.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go look at that, see if it's always been like that, because I don't remember it being that way.
The NFC games honestly are better. I'd much rather watch the NFC games.
I was shocked. I gotta say, as a lifelong Washington fan, first of all, this is already the best season we've had of my entire life. We hadn't won 11 games in a season since 1991. We obviously Commanders won 12 games this season. I was blown away that the Sunday night game, which is supposed to be the pinnacle for primetime NFL viewership, was the Commanders and the Buccaneers.
So I think in the playoffs it's been different because the Bucs have had primetime games in the playoffs the past couple of years. Like not saying it's not the pinnacle game, but like they tend to favor the teams that have the higher seeds in my mind. Like Philadelphia, Green Bay, 4:30 on Sunday. Like realistically, that should be Sunday night or Saturday night, I would say. Steelers Ravens is a good game, but it seems like they've tended to favor teams that have higher seeds and not make them play a night game based on that. Again, that could be totally off the top of my head, but I know the Buccaneers have been given primetime games in the playoffs recently, and they're never like a contender.
It made sense when they had Brady. So
yeah,
I get that, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a good game though. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that has potential to be maybe the most exciting game of the wild card.
It's unfortunate that Baker Mayfield has to end your season, Grant. But if I had to get my season ended by anybody, it'd probably be Baker Mayfield. If I had to.
All right. Well, let's go Packers Eagles, and we'll get there.
All right, Packers Eagles. This one, I don't know how more people aren't saying this could be an upset alert game. I think Philadelphia by far is probably the most talented team in the NFC top to bottom. I think they're more talented than the Lions. I don't think they're as connected as the Lions when it comes to playing as a team, but defensively, they got studs. They fixed their defensive problems from last year. Offensively, you got good receivers. You got a great running back. You got a physical offensive line. You got a solid quarterback. So I think top to bottom, they are the best team in the NFC roster-wise. Green Bay, though, Jordan Love playing well. You got the physical run game. You got the Christian Watson injury kind of hurts you at receiver. The receivers are definitely more limited for Green Bay, but you got a decent defense there. Like there's parts of this Green Bay Packers team that could beat the Philadelphia Eagles. These teams played in week 1. Philly came from behind, found a way to win in Brazil. Grant, I'll let you give your pick first here. I'll follow up.
Yeah, sometimes it's cool to look back at past matchups. I'm not going to do that for this game. Actually, by the way, 4 of the 6 games we're getting here are rematches. They already happened in the regular season. So a lot of these teams have familiarity with one another. Week 1 in Brazil, I'm not even going to consider that. It basically didn't happen as far as I'm concerned. The Jordan Love elbow injury is something of note. Christian Watson's their deep guy, but he also, I think, he might have been 6th in either targets or receptions. So wasn't a central cog in the offense this season. Definitely wish you do have him, but it's not like it's the end of the world. What I think is the biggest deal here is, first of all, this line's 4.5. Like that's not a small line for the playoffs. That's decent size. Jalen Hurts has not thrown a football for 2.5 weeks. He was back at practice yesterday, but he gets knocked out against the Commanders game. He misses the Giants game. He misses the Cowboys game, and then he doesn't start practicing until Wednesday with the game in the middle of Sunday. Even if he's fully back to normal, which you think he would be if he made it through the concussion protocol, to be away from the game that long as a quarterback, and while you're dealing with a concussion, you're not supposed to look at electronic screens and things of that nature. You're not supposed to try to think too hard. Your memory can be impacted. I don't think he's breaking down coverages. I don't think he's doing a whole lot of game planning. So the fact that he had physical and mental rest might be good for him from kind of a long-term perspective, but in this immediate short term where you have to have a quick turnaround and you can't have any rust against a very well-coached Green Bay team, it could be a problem. Philly comes out, they don't get points on their first 2 drives. You could be down 7-0, 10-0. And Green Bay, I don't think they're better than Philadelphia, and Philadelphia's defense is going to have to step up here. They were 2nd in points allowed per game. You would expect them to do that. But I would take 4.5 points with the Packers. I think Philly will win, but I think the Packers keep it close.
Yeah, it gives off field goal game vibes to me because I don't think Philly's offense is going to explode here. I want the Eagles to win. I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'll take the Packers plus 4.5. I'm probably not going to play it and just hope my Eagles future doesn't fade. But the biggest thing that I take away from this game is the fact that we used to view Jalen Hurts as that guy. Like when he took this team to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, he made plays, he did everything. I'm not saying he hasn't done that this year, but I no longer look at him as the guy. I look at him as a guy who's good enough to win a Super Bowl, but he is not the guy on that team. That's concerning to me because when I need this team to go put a drive together against the Detroit Lions or against even the Green Bay Packers at home, I don't know if I have the faith in Jalen Hurts to do that. If they can run the ball effectively, he can make the throws, but I don't see him going out and taking over games, which is a concern in the NFL when it's all about the quarterback.
Part of that is because there's so much quarterback talent that you have to look at who's he playing against. You know, he can be the same guy, but he might not be able to take over a game because the other quarterback could do the same thing. But like, if we just look at some of the quarterbacks in the playoffs right now who are in lesser situations, imagine if Jayden Daniels had the Eagles roster. Imagine if Baker Mayfield had the Eagles roster. You know, imagine if you want to look at some of the other established quarterbacks, imagine Lamar Jackson with this roster, Josh Allen with this roster. This would be a juggernaut. And not that the Philly wasn't, right? Like they had an incredible regular season, but we still put them behind the Lions. Some people would put them probably behind the Vikings.
Yeah. And I like Jalen Hurts too, but like I remember during the Super Bowl run, he became like immortal. Like that was his vibe. It was like an immortal, like Jalen Hurts is the guy. Like Philly has their quarterback. I'm not saying he's not their quarterback of the future. He is, but he's just not. I look at him more. He's a game manager.
You know what the biggest thing was too? He played the best game of his life in the Super Bowl. So even though they lost, you're like, it's only up from here. They are about to dominate.
He's an elite game manager. Like that's where I would kind of put him at. Like he could take over a game. He's good enough to win a game, but is he going to do it all the time? I can't say he is. He's really, and I think that another reason that I have this mentality, I think a lot of people do, it's like he shows no emotion on the sidelines. Half the time the players are fighting. He's just sitting there, and it's not a great look for a starting quarterback. I'm sorry, it's not, you know?
I think there's something to be said for stoicism. Obviously, you know, you want your leader to be fearless when things are going wrong. You don't want them to say anything, but if they're always saying nothing, there's certain moments where you need some emotion, and it doesn't have to be yelling at anybody. It just has to be something. Show me some sort of physical passion that you have for it, and you don't see it with him.
Like I'll say that about Quinn Ewers. You know, we're tying in the college football theme. Quinn Ewers not talking much on the sidelines. But there are moments where he needs to calm his guys down, talk to his guys, like, and he does that consistently. Even though I'll take Jalen Hurts over Quinn Ewers any day, probably. But like Jalen Hurts, whenever things are going wrong, he sits on the bench, and AJ Brown is just complaining about not getting the football. And like Saquon's the guy firing everybody up. Like, I don't want that. I want Jalen Hurts to be the guy.
Saquon's not only the guy firing everybody up too, he's also the guy keeping peace. Jalen was the emotional leader of the locker room. It's Saquon now.
Well, and the narrative, again, the media construes these narratives, but like you can't sit here and tell me, like Fletcher Cox went on the radio and said AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts are no longer friends. And I don't know where you got that, but Fletcher Cox, if you're a longtime NFL. Brandon Graham, my bad. Fletcher Cox, my bad. Brandon Graham goes on the damn radio and says this, right? If you're Brandon Graham and you're an NFL veteran and you know the rules, keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything that's going to ruin your season. Like, why did he say that? I think there's some truth to it, right? And then they go out and they throw, they have 3 touchdown passes the next week. AJ Brown catches a couple, whatever. Like, they're all good. Like, maybe, I don't know. But AJ Brown, we know he's a diva. We know he wants the ball. So if he doesn't get it, that's a problem for him. And I think that's caused some issues with this Eagles team. And then Sirianni is probably the worst person in the world to keep the peace. Like, that is one coach I do not trust. That's why it's like Lions, Eagles. I probably lean Lions because at least the guys like each other. At least the guys like Dan Campbell, and they're going to fight for Dan Campbell.
This is what I have such a hard time understanding about Nick Sirianni. The number one way to judge a coach is if they win games. And Nick Sirianni's record is impeccable. I would have to check. There's a chance he has the highest
He's one
win
of the best.
percentage of any coach in NFL history.
He's a great regular season coach. Yeah.
All he does is win games. So you would look at that and think this is a remarkable coach, but he gets no credit for their offense. He's not a defensive guy. He starts fights with the fans. He doesn't seem to have control of the locker room. So it's like he looks like the best coach in NFL history on one hand, and on the other, it's like, how is this guy not been fired yet?
No, it's bad. It's bad. When I look at Nick Sirianni, I do not trust him one bit. I look at him as a cocky Philadelphia a-hole. And I like him. Like, that's what I want, that spark. I want that fire. And I really like the Eagles. I do. But there are moments where it's like he needs to take control of the team, and it seems like he has lost the team. And like, also too, like fighting fans, I forget what game it was against, but like going up in the stands and like fighting fans, like talking shit to fans, like you gotta be, but the Chiefs thing, how you like that now, Chiefs fans and Eagles fans freaking love that. But like, that's not what I want my NFL head coach, face of the franchise, doing.
Jalen Hurts has the personality of a coach, not
Yes.
a quarterback and coach should be similar, but you need the passion from the quarterback. Jalen's, it's like he's been trained in coach speak.
Yeah. And coach speak to the millions. And then he just answers questions with questions. You know, like,
and also the thing. So after the game, after the Brandon Graham thing happened, and then Jalen goes out, throws 300 yards, completes like 90% of his passes. Forget who it was against. Was it Carolina? Whoever it was against has that great game. And then he goes to the post game press conference. He's like, "So is that what y'all wanted to see?" And he looks all smug and proud of himself, knowing Jalen Hurts also doesn't brag a lot. He doesn't say controversial statements a lot. So that's him kind of going out on a limb to say that. And it's like, yeah, that is what I want to see. We're paying you $200 million. You have A.J. Brown. You have a Heisman winner as your wide receiver number 2. You have the best offensive line in the league. You've got the best running back in the league. Yes, we want to see you throw the football. That's not something to be cocky and arrogant about. That should be the expectation.
Yeah, you're quarterback in the NFL. And I like Jalen Hurts a lot. I think Jalen Hurts is good enough to win a Super Bowl, but the leadership from the outside perspective, he could be the greatest leader in the world when the cameras aren't on. But from the outside perspective, when we see it on television and we see Nick Sirianni and his players fighting multiple weeks this season, it's hard to get behind the Eagles from a future perspective. And like Green Bay, I don't have those concerns with Green Bay. I feel everyone's connected in Green Bay. I feel Matt LaFleur has good connection with the football team. So like that is another reason that I would lean towards Green Bay. And Philadelphia could smoke them. They should smoke them. They're a better team. But I have my doubts about this team because of the coaching, because of Jalen Hurts, because and again, I think these are problems that all Philadelphia Eagles fans and worries they all have.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear, I'm with you. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's good. I think he can win a Super Bowl. But going off of what you said, Green Bay, they don't usually they don't usually lose games. When they do, they're very close. All but one of their losses this season were by 5 or fewer points. So again, right there with that 4.5 point line. They've won 13 games, however many times in Matt LaFleur's career. He always has his teams ready to play, even if they suffer injuries. They're undefeated with Malik Willis as a starting quarterback. I'm sorry if Malik Willis is watching this. That dude is horrific. And the Packers didn't lose a game with him under center. It's a good coach. They have a good scheme. Everybody's bought in. They know what they're supposed to do. And they get to come into this matchup completely under the radar. Nobody expects them to do anything.
But they're still picked 4th in the future odds right now in the NFC. So like they're a live dog in this one. And again, if you're the Eagles or I guess it doesn't work the same if you're the Packers. If you're the Packers, you got to go on the road to face the Lions next week, which is just not going to be fun. But if you are the Eagles, you win this game, you're going to get the Bucs or the Commanders most likely. Like that's a really good draw for the second round, but you got to get through a tough first round game.
Both of those could be trap games for the Eagles in the next round, though.
Oh, 100%. Especially Baker, Grant. Like I know you have your thing with Jayden this, Jayden that.
Well, Commanders already saw him twice, so like you got that film, and the Bucs knocked him out of the playoffs the last 2 years.
Bucs own them. Like Tampa Bay just owns them. They beat them all the time. And this is a different Eagles team, don't get me wrong, but Baker's got it. But we're going to figure out who's going to that game, who's going to face the Eagles. Washington, Tampa Bay. You got a nice 3-hour plane ride to come have your season ended by the Buccaneers, Grant. I'll let you take.
Is it 3 hours? Might be less than that.
Probably less from Washington. Yeah, it's about three from here. But Baker Mayfield, dog. Bucky Irving, dog. Tristan Wirfs, dog.
I gotta say, Tanner, Jayden Daniels is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But on WSN.com, where I said we put out, obviously a bunch of our betting picks and previews and all that stuff. At the start of the year, I wrote something about the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I was kind of dissecting the case for Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels. I said keep an eye on Bucky Irving. This guy is extremely good. Tampa Bay's not been able to run the ball. They need somebody. He'll make a name for himself. He won't win, but if he had the role he has right now back in week 1, he would have been in that conversation.
And I'm like Rachaad White was really good. So I'm shocked that Bucky Irving basically took Rachaad White's carries. And I don't remember Rachaad White getting in the game last week. Like it's kind of amazing how much Bucky Irving has taken over the team. But I'll say this, Grant, you're going to wish that Jayden Daniels did not make the Pro Bowl this weekend. Because you just gave Baker Mayfield a lot of bulletin board material coming into this game. And I think he's going to be ready to go. Your defense has improved, but offensively, you guys are good. I think offensively we're good. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it comes down to who has the ball last. I think Baker just gets it done because he's a dog. And it comes down to the rookie quarterback thing again.
Yeah, this game has the highest total of every game. This is the only total above 50. It's at 50.5. Next closest is at 47.5. I think the Buccaneers are going to win because it is a 3-point spread. I don't know if you're going to get that. It's kind of a trap there. I would still lay the 3 points with the Buccaneers for all of the plays that Jayden Daniels can make. And he's been incredible. He's led 4 fourth quarter or overtime game-winning drives, comeback game-winning drives. He has 3 touchdowns on the final play of regulation. He's been clutch. Philly's defense was allowing the fewest points per game, hadn't allowed more than 2 passing touchdowns in a game. He throws 5 on them. This kid has proven he can do everything there is to do. But Baker Mayfield's having the same sort of year. The only difference is Baker's thrown double the interceptions, and that is something to keep an eye on. But Washington also has one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. I would say, genuinely, Washington has a bottom 2 pass defense and a bottom 2 run defense. I know the numbers don't necessarily support that, but if you watch them, they cannot get stops. Now, Marshawn Lattimore's going to be back, and we know how that always goes with Mike Evans, so that'll be fun to watch. But he only played 2 games. One of them, he got torched against A.J. Brown, and he's coming back off of a hamstring injury, which has been bugging him all year. So how good is he actually going to be? And is he going to play the entire game? I look at this. Washington has struggled the most when they haven't been able to establish the run. Tampa Bay does not let anybody run the ball. You've got Vita Vea clogging up the middle. Washington center, Tyler Biadasz, was injured last week, so he's going to be banged up going against the best run-stopping D-tackle in the whole league. I'm with you. I see this being high scoring. I think there will be turnovers, but I would trust the Bucs just because of how bad the Commanders' defense is.
Yeah, and the Buccaneers don't have a great defense, but they've been able to make plays when they've had to. I think coming into this game for Tampa Bay, the way they won last week was probably the best way possible. I mean, the Saints basically could have knocked them off. It wouldn't have mattered. Bucs would still be in this spot because Falcons ended up losing. But the Saints played really well against them. You get Mike Evans' 1,000 yards on the last play. You get the late touchdown with Bucky Irving, to go up 8. Jalen McMillan starting to come into his own a little bit. Like when Chris Godwin went down, Jalen McMillan really stepped his game up because Mike Evans still wasn't in. I think that's huge for the Bucs. And then Bucky Irving's just been fantastic. So I think high scoring game. And it's crazy to think too, if the Packers were to knock off the Eagles, the Buccaneers would be at home in the divisional round. Like that is just another.
So would the Commanders.
They would? No. Who's 4?
The Packers are the 7.
Packers are 7. Who's 4?
No, the Commanders would play the line. Wait.
No, Rams are 4.
Yes,
Rams
yes,
are 4
that's
seed.
what it is. Yeah.
So you need the 5 seed is you guys are the 5. No,
we're the 6.
6.
5
so
is
you
the
don't.
Vikings.
So Vikings would host. So you guys hate us because you ain't us, Grant. But
um,
it's crazy.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's crazy to think like that the Buccaneers realistically could host another playoff game. I don't think it's going to happen. But what do you think about? I know this is going to sound crazy. I know this is going to sound a little wild, but both these teams really, and I don't know. Do we have conference odds up right now? I don't think we have. I think they took down the conference.
I got
odds.
him. I got him.
Oh, here we go. I got them. Bucks 950 right now. That's gone down a lot. But like Commanders, Bucks, Rams, I mean, one of those teams got a chance to make it to the conference final.
Bless you. They got a chance to make it to the conference championship game, you're saying?
Yeah, and then you can hedge a little bit. I mean, one of those teams. If you got a little extra money to burn, why not?
Yeah, so if we're to assume the Eagles do beat the Packers, then going back to what you said, Tampa Bay already beat Philadelphia. They've knocked them out of the playoffs the last couple of times. Washington has seen Philly twice this year. They did already play them once, already beat them once. So I could see Philly's not being favored by more than a field goal in either one of those games, I don't think. And then the Rams, we're going to talk about it in just a sec, but I like their chances against the Vikings too.
Yeah, no, it's a really good odds for those long teams that are realistically 1 to 2 wins away. I mean, 2 wins away from getting there, but one tough win in a lot of cases and one average win. So it's like when I look at the Bucks or the Commanders, quite frankly, whoever wins that game, like you have a winnable game coming up next, and then you're in the NFC Championship game with blinking an eye. So it's kind of crazy.
It would be if the Commanders. I think the Commanders have a puncher's chance against a lot of teams just because of how good Jayden has been. Genuinely, Jayden Daniels might be doing more for his team than any quarterback in the NFC. So you'll have a chance because of him, but if we somehow get Commanders Lions, my God, that might be like a 40-0 steamroll because the team is just so bad.
Yeah, definitely. We already got the hypotheticals up right now. If it was Bucks Eagles, I don't see a Commanders one, but Bucks Eagles, it would be Eagles -5.5. That's about right. If it was Vikings Bucks at home for the Bucks, it would be +1.5 for Tampa Bay. So interesting stuff. Eagles, Vikings -3.5 there. And then this is the interesting one. If we got Vikings Lions again, -3.5 for the Lions. That's a tough game for Detroit to win again 3 times in a row.
Well, so let's go ahead to Vikings Rams here. Monday Night Football. Let me share something interesting with you. So the Vikings lost 3 games all season. 2 of them were to the Lions, and 2 of their losses were back-to-back. So earlier in the season, about week 7, week 8, around there, the Vikings lose to the Lions. They fly to LA. They lose to the Rams. The Vikings lost to the Lions last week. Now they're flying to LA. Are they about to do the same thing again? Are they about to lose to the Rams again? I say they are. I think LA is going to upset them.
I think it's very likely, especially that trend of teams that when you face the Lions, you don't cover the next week. And if the Vikings don't cover here, they're probably not going to win the game unless it's by a point. So I think physically they're beat up. It depends if you can shake a bad game for Sam Darnold. Like this one comes down to how well can Sam Darnold play? And last week he was not good enough to win the game. He missed tons of wide open throws. Like you look at that score, it got out of hand late. It was relatively close until the third quarter. But the 9 points that they put on the board, all 3 of those opportunities were touchdown opportunities. And then you get stopped on 4th and goal. There were multiple chances for the Vikings to be in the football game. I'm not saying they would have won it, but Jared Goff threw 2 interceptions. Like Jahmyr Gibbs was the only player that beat you, and a lot of the yards did come like when you were just mentally exhausted and worn out. So Minnesota had the team to win last week. I think here, this is probably a spot where they can't shake it, and the Rams do find a way to get it done.
Yeah, I know it's trendy to ignore how good the Rams are. We did it last year. They only lost, I think it was 24-23 to the Lions in the wild card on the road. So they're 1 point away from knocking off the Lions last year. They won 9 out of 11 games this season to end the season. They lost week 18, but they played all their backups. Their starters won 9 of their last 11. So this is a good team. They're very hot. They scored 44 on the Bills and beat them. And their defense has gone from being awful to pretty impressive down the stretch. They're able to get pressure from the inside yet again. When Aaron Donald retired, it's like, okay, well, you're never going to get that type of quarterback pressure from the interior. They've been able to do that. Kobe Brown and those guys, they've also been better at stopping the run, and they've figured out the offense. You've got Matthew Stafford, who has been to and won a Super Bowl before. This is not an easy matchup. Biggest takeaway from that Vikings-Lions game was, I think the Lions blitzed Sam Darnold on 60% of snaps, and he went 18 of 41. So if the Rams can get pressure early, again, knock him off of his spot early. You saw what happened last week. Sam Darnold had a phenomenal season, but this is a player that we looked at as a massive bust. He's at a much better situation now, so he's not going to look that bad. But if you knock his confidence, maybe some of those tendencies start to creep out again. That's probably the key to winning the game.
I think when it comes to coaching, both are great. I'll give Sean McVay the slight edge. Quarterback, Rams. Receivers, probably Vikings, but with the quarterback difference, I'll call it Rams. I mean, they have a Cup and whatever. What's his name? Puka are great as well. It's a great combo. Running back wise, whoever can run the ball, I'd say both pretty even. I'd rather have Kyron right now than Aaron Jones, how they're running it. Defensively, I give the edge to the Vikings, but there's a caveat to that. If they can't score, I give the edge to the Rams. Like last week in the Vikings did as much as they could do, but the wheels just came off because there was no offensive help.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one's also very close, and that's why it is the closest spread, 1.5 points. But I think people are just assuming the Vikings, with good reason, I guess, like 14-3, they are a very good team. But again, Rams won 9 of 11 to close the season. They were injured at the start of the year. They were also extremely young on defense. They made some trades, developed their guys, and they figured it out, and they hit their stride right now.
They got the Oregon treatment. This is like you win 14 games, and your first one's on the road against a good Rams team, and you're never going to get a home playoff game as a 14-win team. And I think their season comes to an end, just like the Oregon Ducks.
Do you know, is this the best wild card from a record perspective? Is this the best wild card we've ever had? Because Packers 11-6, Commanders 12-5, Vikings 14-3. I can't remember one like that.
I think the really good teams are getting better. Like the bad teams in the NFL this year are bad.
Yeah.
The good teams are good, but the bad teams are really bad. There's not like I got to look at all the divisions. AFC East, there was one good team in that division. NFC South, if the Bucs were healthy the whole year, they were by far the best team in that division. The Falcons weren't on their level. NFC South. Texans were the only half decent team with a pulse in that division. NFC West was good. It was solid, but still the Rams were the best team. The 49ers fell off. NFC North was a really good division, obviously. AFC North, really good division. Like those are the two divisions that were really good. Everyone else had one good team, maybe two, but pretty much one.
And we talked about this on, I think it was the last show when we were looking at some mock draft stuff, but I don't see players in this draft that will change franchises, mostly because you need a quarterback to change the franchise. Like Travis Hunter can be a cornerstone piece, but he's not going to Jacksonville. He's not going to Tennessee and making them instantly a 10-win team.
I'm not saying I have my doubts about Travis Hunter because he's obviously unbelievable, but like, you remember Miles Jack?
Yes.
Bro did the same thing Travis Hunter did, not as high level. And Miles Jack runs, I think Miles Jack runs like minor league hockey franchises in Texas right now. So I'm not saying like if I'm drafting a team, here's my thing. If I'm drafting a team, Travis Hunter gets me excited, gets the fans excited. But is Travis Hunter the best receiver or DB at his position? Hell no.
So I've had this conversation with multiple people because a lot of the people I've talked to kind of agree. Like Shador, Cam Ward, clearly the best two, but compare them to Jayden and Caleb. Compare them to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. However far you want to go back, they lose. They're not as good as those other guys. So we were talking about should Travis Hunter be the first pick in the draft? And what you said right there, I said Travis Hunter, phenomenal player, best player in college this last year. Not taking that away from him. Deserved Heisman winner. Him or Genti, take your pick. He's not the best receiver. He's just not. And he's not the best corner. Will Johnson is ahead of him there. You might have an argument for others. For receivers, as far as like just any receiver, like Jeremiah Smith is better, Ryan Williams is better, but they're not eligible, whatever. In this draft, Tet McMillan is usually the consensus number one. Luther Burden's up there, Mecca Ibuka's up there as well. So if he's not the best receiver and he's not the best defensive back and he's not playing both ways in the pros, why would I take him with the first pick in the draft? It doesn't add up.
Well, look at like Jabril Peppers. Like he played both ways a little bit. He played some offense, I believe, right? Like if he gets me excited, like if I'm the Patriots and I was drafting one before Gerard Mayo screwed us on his way out the door, like I would want Travis Hunter because I get more excited about Travis Hunter than like a Mecca Ibuka or something like that. But as far as like, he's not going to play both ways, 100 combined snaps in the NFL. It's not going to happen. So what is he going to do for you? He's probably going to return. Maybe he returns kicks and plays offense. Maybe he plays defense and returns kicks. Maybe he plays 10 snaps on offense a game and, plays defense for you. But there's probably, if you're just looking for one, there's better options for both sides of the ball, I would say, because he's not that big either.
He's also a very poor tackler. So I just don't know how that's going to go at the pro level.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, he's phenomenal. But as far as just like very few people could do what he did. Like, I'm not going to say you could stick a Mecca Ibuka on defense and have him have the same success as Travis Hunter. It's impressive. But from a team NFL draft standpoint, the value is not there for both sides of the ball.
The counter argument is that we saw how good he was. Like, if we're saying he's the second best defensive back and the third best receiver in college while playing both ways, then he has the chance maybe to be the best if he only played one way. So that's kind of like the gamble you're taking. Is he going to be able to elevate his game because you only get him for one side? But then again, is the best receiver in this draft worth the number one pick? Still probably no.
Yeah. And I guess it's good too, because it's like, well, if he doesn't work out on offense and we need a defense, we have a guy who can do that, make that shift over. But it's still a little bit of
wild.
A gamble.
That's like a college thing. You get your first 2 years on campus, you don't get on the field, so you switch sides. That'd be crazy to see it in the NFL.
No, it could happen too. Like knowing he can play both ways and stuff. He's an athlete, so it would work. But if I'm like, I need a cornerstone wide receiver for my team, do I take the risk on Travis Hunter or do I go with somebody else who's played wide receiver? In this year's draft for wide receivers it's not great. It's like, I'll tell you what, if we were, 2 years down the road and it was Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith coming out, like he wouldn't be close to those guys.
No, not at all.
So
one of my buddies who has done pretty well historically as far as kind of projecting picks, he said he thinks Emeka Ibuka is the best receiver in this class.
He is, and he's not even the best receiver on his team.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I saw a stat the other day that Jeremiah Smith this year at 18 had more. I think he had the same touchdowns, more receptions, and more yards than Terry McLaurin had in 4 years at Ohio State.
Wow. It's impressive. That's impressive. But you know what? Hook 'em. Texas keeps it close. Texas finds a way to win the game. Quinn Ewers goes out on top.
We will be back on not Monday. We'll be back on next Tuesday. And we'll be able to see who was right and who was wrong.
Hook 'em. All right, Grant, take us out of here.
Guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Jump in the comments, let us know who you're predicting in the NFL and the college football playoff. Tanner and I will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.